everybody. And this is now the official start of our program. We're so happy that so many of you could come out tonight. Hank and I are thrilled with the panel that we're have assembled for this evening, and I know you're all going to have a wonderful time. For those who are here for the first time and who don't know me very well, my name is Karen Dion. I'm the USA Today and #1 internationally best-selling author of 2 novels of psychological suspense that are set in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, The Marsh King's Daughter and The Wicked Sister. They're both published by G.P. Putnam Sons in the U.S. and in dozens of other countries as well. The Marsh King's Daughter was named one of the best books of 2017 by iBooks and many other booksellers and reviewers. And as most of you have to know by now, it released this fall as a major motion picture starring Daisy Ridley and Ben Mendelsohn. So chalk that off on writer's dream come true, right? Yeah. Now, I want to introduce our authors tonight, and I'm going to introduce them in the alphabetical order. That puts you up first, Jeff. Jeff Ayers is the author of several works of fiction and nonfiction, including the Guide to Star Trek novels, Voyages of Imagination, where he received over 550 books and interviewed over 350 people, including William Shatner and John Delancey. That sounds like something we could talk about in the breakout rooms, right? He's been a freelance book reviewer for almost 25 years for Booklist, Library Journal, many others. Maybe he's reviewed our books, some of our books on his as a reviewer. He's interviewed hundreds of authors. Now he's here tonight because he, with John Land, co-wrote a book. It's the first book in the National Park thriller series called Leave No Trace. There it is. And it comes out from Minotaur Books February 27th. So welcome, Jeff. We're so excited that you get a chance to join the author club, right?
Thank you so much. This is exciting.
Yeah, thanks. My longtime friend, Allison Brennan, we've known each other for forever, is the New York Times and USA Today bestselling author of over 30 novels. She's been nominated for the Best Paperback Original Thriller by the International Thriller Writers and the Daphne du Maurier Award. She believes life is too short to be bored, so besides writing 3 books a year, she also has 5 children. And I'm going to have to ask how she manages time because that just blows my mind. The Missing Witness is Allison's 5th book in her Quinn and Costa adventure series. Do we have it there? Yay, there it is. All right. And Publishers Weekly calls it an action-packed. Serious fans will walk away satisfied. The pace never lags, which I think is pretty typical of Allison's fiction. So thank you, Allison, for coming here tonight. Amanda
Thank you for having me.
Loves to read disturbing books with shocking plot twists. So it seemed logical to her that she should attempt to write disturbing books with shocking plot twists. She's one of the first Sri Lankan women to secure an international book contract. Congrats on that. Her first traditionally published novel, My Sweet Girl, won Best Debut Novel at the International Thriller Writers Awards in 2022. So that's a massive accomplishment as well. Her next novel is Island Witch, which comes out on the 20th of February. And R.L. Stine wrote, every once in a while, a book comes along that drops you into another world and takes you places you never could imagine. This is that book, an astounding accomplishment. Gives me goosebumps to read that. And then we have Abbott Kahler, previously writing as Karen Abbott. She's the author of 4 New York Times bestselling works of historical narrative nonfiction, and they're all so amazing. Sin in the Second City, American Rose, Liar, Temptress, Soldier, Spy, and most recently, The Ghosts of Eden Park, which was an Edgar Award finalist for Best Fact Crime Fiction. And she's written for many major magazines, done a lot of stuff in the nonfiction world. She's here tonight because she has a debut novel, Where You End. And it's inspired by the true story of identical twins and a strange case of amnesia. That's awesome. This book was published January 16th, so it's just out. And Publishers Weekly gave it a starred review. Said historian Kahler makes a brilliant pivot to fiction with this spine-tingling psychological thriller. Kahler never puts a foot wrong. readers will be rapt. And indeed, it's an amazing book, and it's getting so much acclaim. So congratulations on that for your new novel. So those are our authors, and you can see why Hank and I are so excited about tonight's panel. And to give you a chance to get to know them a little bit better, we're going to play a quick game of not quite 20 questions. We have backroom cards. You can see them here. It's all very official with questions on the other side. And I know the authors are super nervous because they don't know what I'm going to ask, but it's going to be easy and fun. So we're going to start out talking about like your writing history. And Abbott, you're the first one I'm going to ask because you're the first one on the screen. So here's your question. What book made you want to be a writer?
Actually, it was a Edgar Allan Poe short stories, probably the Fall of the House of Usher when I was a little kid, which inspired me to start writing and sending really creepy stories to Alfred Hitchcock and Ellery Queen Mystery Magazine when I was about 10. Shockingly, none of them were ever published, but I've loved creepy fiction ever since.
Isn't it interesting how sometimes it just hits early and it just, yeah, it just speaks to us. That's so interesting. I'm trying to picture you as a little 10-year-old liking creepy stories.
Yes, my mother did not put me in therapy, which I question her judgment, but I really was drawn to the darker side of human nature, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I don't think you'll get any argument from any of the authors here in that regard. So, you're with your people, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. Allison, what was your favorite book as a child?
As a child?
Yeah.
Well, first, I'm going to say that I'm very jealous of all my kids who get YA books, which in Gen X, we did not really have YA.
No.
We graduated from Nancy Drew to like Stephen King. I mean, there was nothing in between. I think we had like Lois Lowry and Paula Danziger, and that was like it. But I would say as a young child, I started with Trixie Belden. I read all of the Trixie Belden books and loved them. And then all the Nancy Drew books, and there's like 83. And then there was nothing else. So I started reading Stephen King when I was 13.
Yeah. Nice. Well, it served you well. No question about it. Jeff, what was the title of the first thing you ever wrote? Not first
Airplane
book.
Smash Up in a Gun. And it was a novel that I wrote in 5th grade.
That's awesome.
But the first actual published work I did was I wrote an article for Library Journal, and it was a study of mystery novels that were coming out over the next few months. So that was my first really published book or article. Yeah.
Well, I like to hear that you got an early start. That's awesome. And Amanda, this is particularly appropriate for you. Where did you grow up, and how does that influence your writing?
Oh, wow. That's a great question for me. So I grew up in Colombo in Sri Lanka, and it definitely influences a lot of my writing. I think all my published books have some tie to Sri Lanka in some way, from either the characters just being from there, or in like my most recent book, Island Witch, it's set in the 19th century. It wasn't called Sri Lanka then, it was called Ceylon. But yeah, definitely a lot of ties to Sri Lanka in my writing.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, that's something that you can bring to the page that we could not. So, that's why we really appreciate that your writing in particular. You take us to a world that we don't know.
Thank you. One of the biggest compliments for me is when someone comes up to me and says, Sri Lanka sounds like a really cool place. I'd love to visit. And I learned, I've learned a little bit about it in your books, and I want to learn more. And for me, that's just a huge compliment. So I love that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, the world's a big place. All right, Abbott, your turn. Do you have any hidden talents?
As I mentioned earlier, I can say all of the presidents, and I used to be able to do it in 10 seconds, but then a couple more presidents came along. So I think it's now like 12 to 15. So I can do that.
Will you do that?
I will do that. I've had a little wine, but I don't think too much to impede my my presidential recitation. So let's go. Washington, Adams, Jackson, Mass, Monroe, Adams, Jackson, Muir, Harrison, Tyler, Port, Kilfor, Pierce, Connecticut, Shots, Grant, Hayes, Garfield, Cleveland, Harrison, Kelly, McKinley, Roosevelt, Coolidge, Hoover, Roosevelt, Truman, Eisenhower, Kennedy, Johnson, Ford, Carter, Reagan, Bush, Clinton, Obama, Trump, Biden. I get a little messed up for the end. So yeah.
Wow.
Nice round of applause for Abbott.
I know. What it's kind of you can't kind of understand it, but they're all in there anyway.
I'll take your word for it. And I didn't even time it. So that was pretty cool. Yeah. So we've asked our 4 authors to bring along a book recommendation. And Abbott, we'll start with you. What book do you think everybody should be reading?
It's called Please See Us by Caitlin Mullen. But this came out in March of 2020. So you can imagine poor Caitlin had a really bad time trying to get any publicity for her book. It was right in COVID. But it's a really, really well-written and beautiful book. It takes place in Atlantic City. It is about 2 sort of Jane Does that are found near the boardwalk in Atlantic City. And then a tarot card reader and this woman who is working at a casino spa, sort of down on her luck, running from a trauma of her own. They band together and try to figure out what happened to these 2 Jane Does before a 3rd victim can be claimed.
Thank you, Abbott. Hank is saying in the chat she read it and it's really great. Allison, what book are you recommending?
So it's the Orphan X series by Greg Hurwitz. And I was late to that, but then, and so when Orphan X was discounted on Chirp, I said, okay, I got to finally read this. He had like 3 books out at the time. I said, okay, I'm going to get it, see what all the hype is about. And I liked some of his other books. Oh my gosh, I love this series. And so now I'm actually literally listening to the latest book, that the Orphan X book. Thank God for Audible. And so it's basically about a former government assassin, and now he lives in LA. He's hiding from the government. He's hiding from the people he used to work for, and helping people who basically no one else in the world can help. And it's just, he's the 1-800 nowhere man.
Jeff, what book are you recommending?
So my book here, I'm going to try and with my iPad here, is called 4 Minutes. It's by Brian Andrews and Jeff Wilson, and it comes out on April 2nd. One of the advantages of being a reviewer is I get to see things early. So what if time travel has been invented? And with the technology, it gives military ops teams a chance to stop an incident before it happens. Attacks can be intercepted and lives can be saved. The only flaw is that the person or team sent into the future can only stay there for 4 minutes before returning to the present. And what if the enemy has access to the same technology?
Sounds good.
Great
Sounds
stuff.
Very complicated. Yeah. We've had them as guests at the back room, and yes, their work is just fantastic. So thanks for recommending some old friends.
I would argue this is their best book.
Nice.
And I'm a fan of theirs, but this is their best book.
There you go. Good recommendation. And Amanda, what book are you recommending tonight?
So I am recommending, it's a thriller. It's called What Is Mine? And I am, again, trying to do that, but I know it's up on the screen because it's by this author called Leo Butler. And I've always been a big fan of her thrillers because I think she does a really good job in getting that really like visceral feeling. I find when I read her books, I tend to tense. And, you know, at the end, you kind of like, you have that release, you're like, why does my body hurt so much? And like, that's how you know that you've been kind of on edge the entire time. It was a really fun escapist read that just hooked me on, sailed right through, had to know what happens next. I really recommend it.
Wasn't that fun? We hope you enjoyed this taste of what a backroom event is like. The best part comes immediately after, when the audience is divided into 4 breakout rooms and the authors visit each room in turn. We'd love to show you what a breakout session is like, because these relaxed face-to-face conversations between authors and readers are the hallmark of our backroom events. But breakout sessions are never recorded. What's said in the back room stays in the back room.